We learned that HTML, it's really important to validate. Make sure that even though the browser is showing your web page the way you think, you still need to validate or check your syntax before you finish your web page. Well, it's the same thing with CSS. It has its own validator. And so if I type in here in Google and I do CSS validator, you're going to see it has a separate but similar validator. So this one is W3 Jigsaw. I don't know why it's Jigsaw, but that's what it is. It looks exactly the same, except this one says CSS and the other one said HTML. So it works exactly the same way. You could input by uploading a file or inputting your code directly. But the good news is that we installed this validator, and it doesn't just do HTML, it will also do our CSS. So if I wanted to validate this, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that I'm in the appropriate page that I want to validate. Now I'm going to validate my HTML. Looks like all is good. And now I'm going to validate my CSS. Let me clear this out. And then I'm going to validate, and I don't have to make any changes. It's just going to recognize that I'm on the CSS page, and it lets me know that my CSS file is valid. Well, this is going to be really, really important because as you validate, it helps you learn the syntax, the things that you are allowed to and not allowed to do in CSS. And that can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Here's an example. When we do a box shadow, for example, we have this feeling like we need to put in a comma. That just feels right. Putting a space in here doesn't feel right. But syntactically, this is not correct, and it won't display our web page with that box shadow. And in fact, we're getting a CSS validation, and this is the same scenario that we've had with HTML. We can put our cursor over it and do our best to try and figure out what is it upset about. So I'm going to erase those commas because I know that that's not. It's very common for us sometimes to accidentally leave off the closing curly brace, for example. So I'm not getting any visual index. I'm getting a visual indication here. I've got a red curly brace instead of a pretty green one. So I'm going to clear all and I'm going to validate. And sure enough, it's saying not valid. And if I move my cursor over here, it's going to try and tell me that it's not. I hope it's going to try and tell me, or is it going to try and tell me? Nope, it's just highlighting it. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and put it in. Another common mistake that I see is that people will put the wrong value in for something. For example, a very common one would be, let's see, what would be a common one? Let's say I put in border radius. Let's say I left off the pixels and I just put 3. Well, I have to put in some kind of value, whether it be pixel or percentage or something along those lines. A common one that people make might be text decoration. Trying to think of a good example. Maybe text decoration, somebody might accidentally put in or think, oh, I'm going to put center because that makes sense. Well, just because it makes sense, I don't know if it does make sense, but just because it makes sense doesn't mean it's correct, because each of these properties will only have specific values. You can't just put in what value you want. You have to put in ones that are valid. And this isn't a valid value for that, so I can't put in center. So these are things to pay attention to. I don't know what some of the others might be. That is kind of all I have here. Margin, auto, yep. Anyway, so number 1, always make sure that when you're finished, you validate both your CSS and your HTML to make sure that you've put in all of your values properly. You've chosen the right selectors, you've chosen the right properties and the right values for what you're trying to style.